Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It's Matt Cook here with Jonathan Green. Each week we serve you up some amazing, entertaining, and very informative, whatever it is, dating and relationship help and using real situations and real people. You may have heard of me. Have 700,000 newsletter subscribers. I'm a well-known health and sex researcher, interviewed on ABC News and other places. Jonathan Green was the most famous dating coach in the world before he actually applied what he teaches. And now he's in a wonderful relationship and lives on a remote tropical island. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So I had a question that I wanted to ask you. This is kind of what happens now. We do relationships and dating here. So what happens when you're in a relationship? Let's say this is from the wife that married 13 years, 4 kids. She says, it's just been tough. She's home homeschooling. She makes the husband dinner. He comes home and the house is clean and he has a nice dinner. She says, I do my part and there's no closeness between us. We bicker a lot. We just, I don't know. We don't really go from loving sex anymore. We just kind of want it to be over. Um, you know, I'll still get randy, but, it's just kind of a turnoff. For example, today he was mowing the lawn. I love watching him do that. I like seeing him there, but I stopped watching him because I was like, ugh, it's him. Has this ever happened to you? How do we get it back? How do you prevent a relationship from going in this direction?
I love this question because I think it's very normal. What happens in a relationship is, when people say, oh, you work in the business instead of on the business, sometimes you're so busy being married that you get into a rut without realizing it. It doesn't sound like either of them are intentionally doing anything. He's exhausted from work. She's exhausted from homeschooling. That's a really hard task and doing everything. And she has a desire to fix it instead of saying, most people, as soon as things get a little bit tough, they go, I guess we should get divorced. So usually bickering is a symptom, not the root cause. It's usually caused because something else is going on, right? You don't, like at the beginning of a relationship, you don't bicker. At the beginning of a relationship, if my wife had left the toothpaste open and squeezed from the middle, I wouldn't have said anything. I'd be like, oh, whatever, right?
Yeah, you forget
so that
anything,
tells you that
really.
other things matter. When you're at a high emotional point. So the real question is, and this is a great question, how do you reset? And I think there's two components here, which is the romantic and the sexual part of the relationship. So I think we want to split those two things, which is that we don't enjoy each other's time, and sex has become, it's surprising that they're doing if they both don't enjoy it.
Well, she says, I know sex is part of marriage. He has his needs. It feels like someone I don't know is asking me for sex, and it skeeves me.
So it turns into a chore, which I don't think is that uncommon. So I think everything she's feeling, that's the first thing to say, is like, this is a very normal.
I don't think men feel that way, though.
Well,
not as much.
I do.
Not as much.
I think some. I've got one coming up from a guy who I think it does. So it can happen, but also, especially if other things are going on. I've been in parts of my marriage where I felt like it was a chore because my wife had a much higher libido than me. And I was like, listen, 4 times a day will kill me. You have to stop. I'm dying. So you do have these different phases, but the most important thing is, I think, to first realize there's a problem, which she's done, which is great. And the second step is to say, well, what can I do to rekindle? Obviously, one of our go-to answers is your classic, really good answer about switching from chasing orgasms to chasing a different brain chemical, going from dopamine to serotonin. I'm probably saying it wrong because I always say it wrong, but I think that's a good idea here, which is they're both on the same path. And I think she can say, what we need to do is a reset. I'm very good at the friend zone reset. And I think this is a different type of, what we just need to do is like push pause.
What they have to do really is decide they're going to do naked cuddling every night for 40 minutes, 30 minutes without sex for like a couple weeks. And then what that does is, just as you said, it will increase the oxytocin and it'll increase the desire they have for each other and reset everything in the relationship, honestly.
So I feel like this guy will say yes. I have a good feeling. That's why I like this one, because I actually feel like he's aware of it. It's funny that she likes to watch him mow the lawn, and it used to make me horny for her, and now it's not. That's a very honest thing to say. So they're really not in that bad of a situation. They're in the early phases. I wish most people would notice something's wrong this early. But I think you got the right answer. It's like, that's a So the biggest problem is when people think they're the only one who's ever had that problem. This is how depression works. This is how a lot of mental challenges work. You start to think, I'm the only one who's ever felt this way. So then you feel this additional loneliness and on top of feeling depressed, and isolation is where you can get vulnerable. So I'm glad she reached out for help. I think this is a smaller problem than at first it seems like, because they've caught it very early.
I agree. And it's not too messed up. Someone asks routinely, women will email and ask me if there's such a thing as female Viagra, which there is not. There are pharmaceuticals that will get women visibly aroused in terms of blood flow, whatever, but they don't feel aroused, so they don't feel anything. So there really isn't.
Let me ask you a question then about that. When I was in high school, there used to be, like, in the bathroom, a thing called Spanish fly. Like, you could buy condoms, and I never understood what it was.
Right. Supposedly it's an aphrodisiac to get women aroused, but I don't think it works, and I think it's dangerous.
Okay. Is it actually made from flies? Is that a horribly stupid question?
No,
okay.
No, it's not.
The name sounded so horrible. I would never want to eat something fly or ant or bug. And also, this is just me, I wouldn't eat something that came out of a public bathroom vending machine. Maybe that means I'm too fancy, but it's like, you know what I mean?
I've done that. I've done that too many times. I don't want to do it anymore.
Anything that comes out of, because it's always like a truck stop bathroom.
Yeah.
And also would have the like gum, they were like, this is a toothbrush gum,
and
whatever
condoms,
that is.
Rib for her pleasure. I love that one. But they probably have holes in them,
I don't know.
I can't trust those.
Again, it's like, I don't know if I've ever bought anything, maybe like a soap out of one of those, but yeah, I've never bought a condom out of one of those. I just don't trust. That's below my trust threshold for machines. I'll buy like an important thing. Condom is so important to your life.
So my point is that women often want to feel desire, okay, but then they don't. So, and it's a barometer of the relationship more than anything else, more than men. So generally men have sexual needs. They don't generally there is an argument that men have an andropause, sort of corresponding to menopause, but generally men's drive continues throughout their life. And we have men sometimes that father children in their 90s. But for women, it's a barometer of the relationship. So as she says here, I'll get Randy still, but then he makes me turned off, and I'm just going like, no way, and that's something that's a reflection. And it can, like you said, getting these brain chemicals back restored can do amazing things. And I also think people have to continue having sex even when they're busy.
Here's something I've been thinking about. There's been such a push with like second or third wave feminism towards sex positivity, and all of these things, like pornography is more prevalent, toys are more prevalent. Like people use toys you plug into the wall, which just like the electricity issues scare me, right? Anything you plug into the wall, I don't feel like you should touch your bits with, because I'm just too afraid of. I've been shocked before, like touching a charger.
Sense. No, that makes sense.
So
okay,
at least with a battery, there's a limited amount of power in it. Eventually, it will die. But that's what I think about. But do you think that this has led women to think they're supposed to get horny in the same way men do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're supposed to feel the exact same thing.
I think so. I think you're absolutely right. I think that porn has sent messages. You remember when we were growing up, especially when I was growing up, but you too, we had like dirty magazines occasionally, if you could get one, or, someone had a video that their dad had or something like that. But now there's so much high-speed porn that we all learn our sex education from porn. We used to learn it in health class or the birds and the bees discussion, or our, other boys or whatever. But now it's from porn, and women are supposed to act like men. They're basically supposed to just be completely into sex all the time, and, all of it from porn. And it has absolutely distorted the self-image of women and what they feel is expected of them in a relationship, a sexual relationship. I totally think that's true. And women are not at all turned on the same way men are. We all know that. And so porn is so unreal. It really distorts what we should do, and then we can feel guilt or shame. And I like this woman because she's frank about it. Like you said, she's honest about it, and she is good at articulating the issue.
It's just, there's this expectation that everyone is exactly the same, that, the way man gets horny is the way I'm supposed to get horny, and the same things make him turn on, and should make me turn on. And it's like, well, no, some people are fast and some people are slow burn. Some people need a foreplay and she might need a different foreplay. All of those things are components that I think that they get lost in the mix because we're all trying to be exactly the same as each other. And the thing about all these dirty films is that we used to, when I saw them as a kid, it was like so unnatural. You go, why everything she says is weird, but now girls in real life are emulating that.
Right.
And what's the first time I encountered this? So in Japan, when I lived in Japan, I was dating women. The first time we slept together, every single woman says the same things. It's a script. It's so big. It's so big. It's so big.
Yeah, because they've seen it in porn.
It's so well. I don't know. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. Stop. 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 So first time I slept with a Japanese woman. By the time she got to the middle of the script, I jumped off the bed. But then I realized they all say it. It's very zombie-like because it's the same word. It's always 3 repeats. It's always in the same order. Obviously, it's in Japanese, so I translated it for you. And then she goes, "Why did you stop?" But Japanese women will always look away and like cry, act like they hate it and they hurt it because that's what they think men like. And I was like, I don't like this game. That's maybe Japanese guys like that. I don't like that at all. I don't want to be there when you don't like it. And I also want to say, it seems like if you ask most, especially women now, their favorite position, it's always doggy style. And I wonder if that's a change.
That it didn't used to be change. I think it's a
because
change.
It's the least.
It's not intimate. It's just dominant, sexually dominating, but it's not intimate.
And unless you have a mirror up, which I do not do that. I don't want to look myself in the eyes.
Right.
I think if I made eye contact with myself, I would lose my arousal. I'm like, why is there another guy here?
Who's that guy?
But the same thing. I wonder we've had that shift. I've got one for you that dovetails with this nicely. Right. That goes in the right direction. So, been together with my wife since we're 18. We never had a great sex life after the first year, maybe once or twice a year at most. But at the minute, it's going on 3 years. And although it bothers me, I love her and I love our kids. So I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I know plenty of friends in the same situation. I almost don't want to read the rest of it, right? I'm already like, you have so many problems in the relationship that have always been there and you just ignored them. They got bigger. It gets a little bit crazier. He says, you know, my weight's gone up and down. My weight was as high as 300 pounds, but now it's down to 200. I'm 6'2", so I've lost a lot of weight, which you think would make, that's a 33% weight drop. You think that would make a big difference. Yeah, it's great. So my wife has always been hotter than me and I'm insecure, but now she's getting insecure because I'm more attractive again. That's interesting. So women have started messaging him on social media because he's got skinny again. It's interesting. And so his wife goes out with some friends, single friends and relationship friends, and she looked amazing. And one of the, I guess basically the wife went out and she says, I met a guy. She went out, she got drunk this night. She goes, she wakes him up and goes, listen, I met a guy tonight and he kissed me. I didn't kiss back at first and then I did. Then for the next half hour, we were dancing and constantly kissing. She kept saying sorry and begging me not to leave her. My first reaction was, so what? It's only kissing and dancing. I just hugged her and tried to calm her down. So, and then an hour later I said, I know you feel guilty, but please don't. I'm not going to leave you and break us up over some kissing. It's like, yeah, if I was going to leave you, it would have been over the no sex for 18 years. It wouldn't be over the cheating. You've already, you know what I mean?
That's right. That's right.
It's kind of like, you murdered 18 people, but I'm not going to bring up the jaywalking that you did on the way to get there.
Yeah.
It's almost what it sounds like. So,
right.
How do I get through to her that she needs to stop feeling guilty and just moving on? Because I haven't, it's not a big deal.
Well, she does have to feel guilty. She should feel guilty.
Well, you know what? Well, they're not married. They're just roommates.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? In a way, it's like, well, you haven't had sex in 3 years. She's already done. The marriage
you're done. You're done.
The marriage is like, I don't know what the right word is.
What's the question that was being asked?
How do I get through to her that she doesn't need to feel guilty anymore?
Well, that's ridiculous. Why does he care? I mean, not his business, what she feels or doesn't feel. It's everyone's, it's each person's business, what they feel or don't feel. It's not his job to make her feel better.
So I think this guy's fallen into a bunch of traps. One of those is that where you think how other people feel is your responsibility.
Yeah.
You can only control what you do. You can't control how people react to it. I don't have the ability to make you feel anything. I don't. Yeah. I don't have that. No. Unless you let me. But that's you reacting, not to me, to what I'm doing. Because you ever had someone say something, someone, and they get really upset, and then they realize you said something else, and then they're not upset anymore? that all happened inside of them, not from you. We have control of our emotions. This is something I'm working on with my kids right now. I'm trying to explain to my sons, when you're mad, that's a choice. You're in control of your emotions. Your emotions aren't in control of you. Someone else didn't make you mad. It's your reaction. So you have more power than you realize. And I think that this is a bigger problem. I love that his problem is my wife feels guilty for cheating on me. How do I make her stop feeling guilty? This guy is like a tier 1 cuck.
He's somebody that a woman would never have any respect for. And I really think the foundation of a relationship between a man and a woman has to be respect, that the woman has to respect the man. This is why nice guys don't get anywhere, because they're not respected by a woman. And everything he is doing is completely removing any kind of respect that a woman would have for the man. And
do you think
that's
that
very unattractive?
Here's what I think. I think 2 things happened. I think that she kissed the guy because she was finally near someone she found attractive. She was already being naughty. She was already dancing with the guy and flirting and all the other stuff. You know what I mean? The guy doesn't just walk up and kiss you without saying a word. That's an assault. But the second part is what's more interesting to me. When she came home and woke him up, I feel like she did that to get a reaction.
Yeah.
She wanted to see.
She wanted to blow up. She wanted him to blow up and be really upset and jealous.
She wanted that would have been like, does this guy think I'm worth fighting for? And he's missing the signal she's sending, which
completely
is
missing. Hey, completely.
All right. I've got one that's so crazy. So this is a woman. She's one of those women that like does a lot of gardening. She has tons of indoor houseplants, and like she's been doing her whole life. She got plants she inherited from her mom. Her sister gave her a really amazing plant. Over the last 6 months, about a third of my plants have died. I've had to plants my whole life because my mother loved them and she taught me how to do it. And I go, I know something doesn't seem right because I'm consistent. I track the nutrients. I check the roots. When one dies, I do an autopsy or whatever the right word is for checking. So she really knows what she's doing, right? And I didn't get upset because it wasn't any of the expensive ones. But then my sister gave me a special type of plant for my birthday and 2 months ago, and it just died. I was crying pretty hard. And when I pulled it up, I was studying the roots to see what caused it. Is there a pest? Is there something in the house? Is there something in the air? And I noticed that it smelled like bleach. And she goes, well, the only person in my house is my husband. Long story short, she discovers that her husband will randomly put bleach in the water for the plants to kill some of the plants. And she confronted him. He goes, I just wanted to knock you down a peg. So this is so dark. At first, I didn't think it was real because it's such a thing. But then I thought the houseplants thing makes it seem really crazy. But I think there's things where people sabotage their partner. And I want to dive into that part with you.
So I believe that in a relationship, there's always more dominant and a more submissive partner. And generally, the man is more dominant and the woman is more submissive. And women love men who are able to get out there and be the hero in their world and, slay the dragons and come home with having accomplished and achieved something and have respect of other people. I mean, that's what they want. And they want a man like that so that man can help them kind of control their own emotions and protect them against their emotional outbursts and so forth. And so in this case, when there's a power struggle for that dominant submission, it's like this. You go into someone's house as a guest. There's a table that's a rectangular table. Who's at the head of the table, right? So in good marriages, the man is at the head of the table and the wife sits to his left. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case, it has to be. You could have a relationship where the woman is dominant and the man is submissive. That's perfectly fine. But what you can't have is a relationship where they're both at each other because they're in a power struggle for who's going to be dominant in that relationship. That doesn't work.
Interesting.
And that's what I see going on here. Taking down a peg, doing this to something that she loves is a power struggle for for dominance. That's what I see.
So I thought, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, because this is so over the top to me. This is like, get out of the relationship, is that there's also some element of like, I feel like you love the plants more than me. So you sometimes get those situations where you're like, oh, you love the dog more than me. You love the cat more than me. This is the first time I've heard plants, which I don't think of plants as an animate object. I know they're alive technically, but I would find it very hard to be jealous of a plant. My wife does a lot of gardening. I've never been jealous of the bananas or any of the plants, but
anything you put a lot of work into like that, I mean, it's a living thing.
You spend time with the plants instead of time with me. So I feel like that's another element. Now, the story gets a lot darker because it turns out he was like stealing toys from her daughter just so he could shout at her daughter for losing toys. So she pulled the So again, that's where you're like, I think, it's going down a path, but
I'm just trying to apply a more general principle here that would apply to people.
Yeah, because this guy's obviously a terrible guy. Get out of the relationship. As soon as someone is. So I'll give you an example that I wanted to talk about in my life. So my wife is really trying to lose a bunch of weight, and her trainer, to create a motivation point, said, "Hey, in the big city near us, there's a like a bodybuilding competition, and he wants her to enter in the fitness division."
Okay.
And I said, "Yeah, go for it." But her friend, her husband is like, "No way! I don't want other guys looking at my wife."
Right.
And I understand both perspectives, right? So his perspective is, you know what? That's just for me. That's not for everyone else.
It could be it could be that that other husband's missing something, because it could be very pleasurable having other guys looking at your wife.
It's, you know what? He's from a different culture. He's from a different country, and he's, you know what I mean? I was like, well, I understand both perspectives. I don't think it's that crazy, but here's what I said to my wife. Here's the game I play. I said, listen, you can enter the competition, but whoever wins is who I'm going home with. So you better win. Give you a little more motivation. I always play these little games. Obviously it's not true, but it's
a role playing. It's a pretend game. Yeah, kind of fun.
So it doesn't bother me. I also feel like those competitions, I don't feel like there's a bunch. I just can't imagine that it's full of like horny dudes in the crowd. I just feel like it's all other weightlifters who are just obsessed with their own stuff. I don't.
Yeah, I agree.
Large crowd.
Anyway, so what? If they're horny dudes, who cares, really? Who cares?
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking about. But it's the same type of thing. Is like, well, would I sabotage her, right? So that like other guys don't want her? Would I like mess with her protein powder or whatever, right? Or whatever her diet is? I don't pay that much attention to it.
Well,
would I do that in order to take her down a peg? And it didn't cross my mind until I read this article.
Yeah. Okay. But let's put a different scenario. Let's say that she is going to become what it is that you do, and she starts being really, really successful at it, everything. You might feel jealous, if she's in your domain, you might feel very jealous. That's how I feel about it. If my wife is in a different domain altogether, then I want her to accomplish and be successful. But if she starts to eclipse me in my domain, I would probably be quite jealous and upset, even though I don't want to be, but that's how I would feel.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I just don't know if I would, because I haven't experienced it. Like, I don't know. Like, if my wife wrote a book and more people read it than me. You know what? For a while, she had more social media followers than me on one thing, and I did not like it. It didn't really bother me, but I was like, I better step on my game.
A little bit, a little bit. Yeah, that's a point. So I've got one for you here that I think is interesting. It's really long, so I had it summarized. So she says they're married in their 40s, no children, very career focused. By the way, I'm going to just mention parentheses here. So many people are going to regret being career focused and not having children. It's too late for someone in their 40s, but pretty bad. Yeah. Anyway, husband was laid off. We should talk about that. Husband was laid off 5 months ago. He's not really searching for a job. He plays online poker. He's always feeling sorry for himself. She works from home. She says, I feel like I'm suffocated. I don't have any freedom. I'm the one that has to do everything in this relationship. She says, we have one car and I have to, and he's losing things and he damages things. He's always watching me. He's always questioning me, and all he does all day is play poker and watch sports. He's not doing chores that need to be done. Then I have to finish cleaning up the kitchen and stuff when I get home. I'm not attracted to him. And so if I say no, he sulks when I deny him sex. And he gets defensive whenever we try to discuss this. And the therapist suggested, she said, well, you should talk to your husband, or you should stay at a hotel. It's temporary. That's what the woman said. She said it's temporary. And all my stuff is at home. I have a dog and I want to take the dog, and they don't really allow dogs to the hotels. There's only one car. But, otherwise I would think about doing it. It's that bad. So what do you think should be done?
So I feel like therapists don't have a really high success rate in this type of scenario.
Or anything. Yeah, and then almost anything.
I used to think that, but a therapist really helped me with PTSD. So
I know. But for relationships, I remember a good friend of mine is a marriage counselor, very successful, and he told me privately, he said, I don't think marriage counseling works. It doesn't work, and we have trouble in our relationship. I don't go for counseling because it doesn't work.
I always say, like, just ask your therapist what's your success rate, because when I got therapy, the guy goes, oh yeah, I can fix you. And he did.
But see, that was just you. But if it's two people, there's this dynamic, and I found that couples going is they always want to get the therapist on their side, and it's all focused on negativity to try to get the therapist to agree with them. It's awful. It's awful.
Because you're like, oh, what are the things that they did last week that upset you, or what are things you remember? That's the dangerous path.
Yeah, it's all negativity. It's all negativity.
I think there is a version that could be good, but I don't. This idea, the two choices here are confrontation and just stay in a hotel. Both of those are big moves. I think what you first have to do is figure out what's going on. I think the husband is depressed.
Oh yeah, I think so too. You're right. That's a great observation.
Because what he's doing is devolving. He's turned into like a 14-year-old or so, right? He's all the things you do at 14, and he's starting to.
He worked 5 or 6 days a week when he was working, and he traveled a lot and was very successful.
Right. So he lost his job, which is his identity.
Right.
Because I bet they were making a similar amount of money because they don't seem to have had a big lifestyle change. And we know you always say that's a sign of bad things to come. I think that the question is, and this is a good question, is can you fix someone else's depression? So, because I feel like if she moves into a hotel, here's what I think. If she moves into a hotel, that will simply, what's the word, escalate, like make his depression bigger, because depression thrives in isolation.
Yeah.
As someone who struggles with depression, it's still a part of my life. I just have a lot of strategies for dealing with it. So I'm very conscious of it when it happens. So I'll give you a specific example. In my head all the time, one of the depression thoughts is, you're alone all the time. I am literally never alone. I've been in this house alone in the past year one time for more than 5 minutes. Actually, ever. And it lasted about 10 minutes. There's always someone in the house. I am so rarely not with a family member.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with it. Right?
That's what I mean. It's such an unrealistic thought. It's still very powerful. Yeah, so it still hits me, but I look at it and go, this is not an objective reality, but it still hits me.
And you could be alone in a crowd of 1,000 people. You feel alone. Exactly. Exactly.
Let's not help me cycle. Let's not give me new angles of looking at it. Like, let's not give it more power. But that's what I mean, is that you have these thoughts that they don't have to be true to be powerful because it's something happening. So I think that, but I don't know if someone comes to you and says, like, I think you're depressed, and like, because I've had this happen where my dad goes, I think you have a problem with anger. Here's a book on anger. And I was like, F you, throw it back in him, basically, because it doesn't, when you don't want to, until you are ready to say you have a problem. So I understand the idea of pulling back.
Well, of course, she can't wait for him to be ready. So,
no, that's what I mean.
Cognitive behavioral therapy has had a good track record for depression. Then they came up with this idea. Someone said, cognitive behavioral therapy is observing your thoughts that lead you to taking to having certain feelings, and then observing them, you notice them, you try to look at other angles to those thoughts. It kind of gets you to question your thoughts. And there's a behavioral aspect. It's cognitive behavior. So here's the point. Then someone said, why don't we forget the cognitive crap and just do the behavioral stuff? It turns out it works just as well, actually. She could she could say to him, she could say, look, you're depressed, whatever. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. So we've got, an ultimatum, right? Like 3 months. And I don't expect you to have a job necessarily in 3 months, but I want to see that every day. I want to come home and I want you to tell me what you've done and look for a job.
No, she doesn't leave. She works from home.
Well, no, she should tell. Okay, right. Well, every day she does on that. Okay, TV goes off. You're not playing poker. You're not on the computer. We'll use a blocker like on the router to block gambling and all that. That's not going to happen anymore. And I want you out to the gym at least an hour a day. I think they have to agree on because if you change your behavior, the depression will lift. And just taking a few actions proactively will get him in the momentum direction to fix this problem. And he'll be very, very happy at that point because he'll start getting some results.
There's a really strong link for me between exercise and depression, like really strong. So if I don't exercise for, let's say, 5 or 6 days, guaranteed, I'll start getting depression spikes.
I see.
So it's just very connected. But if it doesn't mean exercising guarantees it won't happen. Like it's whatever 4 legs equals a dog, but not whatever that thing is. But that it still is there. So I think that it's not, again, it's just that she's let it go on for a while. You need to shut it down. I think the therapist's idea, which are 2 ultimatums, of talking doesn't solve depression. Action does.
No, I mean, it's behavioral. I think the behavioral part, the cognitive part where you work on worksheets, you can get books that have these worksheets.
It just makes you more depressed because you just think about it.
Yeah, the behavioral part is the key. Changing behavior. He has to agree to change the behavior.
Let me ask you a question. How would you feel if I said, hey, for the next hour, let's just write down everything in your life that you're sad about? How are you going to feel in an hour?
I feel no way
you're going to feel
sad.
happy. Do you know what I mean?
I would feel very sad.
Like it's no matter how good your life is going, that's a terrible game. But
so here's a way. Here's a way to do that. What you could do is she could say to him, "Look, let's make a list of the things you do every day." So they put together a list. Plays online poker.
Such a red flag.
Yeah, probably, and a lot of porn use too, obviously. So okay, so you make a list of these things, and then you like draw a line down the page, and on the right column for next to each thing you put a replacement behavior. So instead of playing online poker, what you're going to do is send out 5 resumes or whatever, right? Instead of, and so you have these replacement behaviors, because it's not possible for someone not to do something, but it is possible for them to replace one activity with another.
I like this.
That's what you do. And then if he agrees and does it, there's a good chance that the momentum will carry him, because he is a good person. He did work really hard, and he'll get out of his depression by action.
Exactly. I think first it's realizing what's going on, because I think it sounds like the other therapist diagnosed it as like something else, but I think it's depression.
He's just a bum. Your husband's a bum right now. Something.
But it's just, but he lost his job, which is, they don't have kids, so his job is probably his identity, because he doesn't have an identity as father.
And she's successful. She's in an MBA program. Right. She was at a demanding job. And it's like, oh God, that's horrible. Yeah. If she was at a menial job, if she was a waitress at a restaurant, it'd probably be way better for him at this point.
Because it would put a pressure on him. He's like, I got to perform. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got one for you that's a little bit interesting. So I met my girlfriend about 6 months ago on a dating site. I really liked her right away, but recently I made the mistake of going through her cell phone. I love when people describe it that way.
Oh gosh, a mistake. By mistake. He thought it was his phone.
Right. I found messages to her friend after our first dates. I know it was wrong to do it.
Yeah.
How long do you think it would take to do that? So to go through someone's phone and find a text message from 6 months ago about you, that's not a 5-minute job.
That's
you know what
hour.
I mean? I feel like
an hour or two.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. About an hour.
How did he get her code?
I mean, my wife doesn't text in English, so I would never be able to do it. I would also have to have a dictionary next to me.
How did he get her password?
She's asleep and he pointed at her face.
Yeah,
now your face opens it. I bet that's so creepy. I've never done that. But so he says, I found out that he said, oh, he's nice, but not quite my type. He's short, no beard, and slight acne. But she pointed out that my character was good after the second and third date, but even called me ugly. So she was struggling whether or not to see him again, since he was a nice guy and liked his personality, but eventually
What's there to like? What's there to like?
Well, I mean, the only thing she didn't like about him was that he was ugly. So I'm going to go first on this one. I don't think I've ever slept with a woman that at some point didn't call me ugly.
No.
I think, here's what I know, because I've experimented with a lot. No, here's the thing. People don't understand that ugly means something different to women and men. So I'll give you a very specific, because I'm very fascinated by this word. I did a lot of experiments. So during my experimental phase, I would overhear a woman call me ugly before she spoke to me. And then I would talk to her and be charming. And later on, she would say to her friend, wow, he's so hot. So women.
Ugly could be hot. I think ugly could be hot.
Okay, well, let's calm down. I'm not ugly hot. I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying personality counts for a lot.
It counts for so much for women, is what you're saying.
It's like, that study, I think you told me about this, where they showed the picture of like the guy, hot guy, and then they said he's a waiter, and then the ugly guy, and then they said he's rich, and suddenly they like the rich guy. There's a lot to be said there's a lot of women and men aren't attracted in the same way. So
no, completely different. And the big mistake men make, they always think that women think like men, because they don't understand. Women think like women. It's completely different.
Okay, here's something that she did say to him, which is he was lying in bed with her once after they had been intimate, and she said to him, my friends would be surprised if they saw you. And I asked her, what did she mean? And she goes, my other dates were always taller and more muscular and more tattooed and just totally different. That's not a cool thing to say.
No.
That's different. Now she said it to him. But then on the fourth date, here's what's interesting. After their fourth date together, it was the first time they slept together, and she texted her friend that he's a 10 out of 10. Why do you care what someone thought about you 6 months ago before they slept with you? Do you know what I mean? In the building phase.
Don't go looking. I have a real problem with going through someone's phone without their permission. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that with my wife. And by the way, my wife gets a text message. I don't go like look at her phone. I hand her a phone. Oh, you got a message, and I hand it to her because she has her right to privacy. And look, if she having affairs and whatever, okay, I guess wait. I'm not. I'm just not going to look through her phone. I'm not going to do that unless I have reason to. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So I don't feel that that's a big deal. That what he found is nothing to me. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, considering what you could find in a phone. Like on a scale of 100,
well, you could find nude pictures of somebody
with another guy. Yeah, there's so many things she could find.
More recent.
Anything. Yeah. And it's like, 6 months ago, when I first met you, I wasn't that attracted to you. This is the same thing we were talking about therapy earlier. It's like living in the past. It's like such a dumb place to live. If things are good right now, and this is not foundational. She didn't cheat on him. She's not slowly poisoning him. She's not killing his plants.
Right.
Just, it's like, sometimes I feel like people are, like looking for a problem. Like, you're never going to, let me put it this way, you're never going to look through someone's phone and find something that makes you really happy about your relationship. You're either going to find nothing or something bad. Yeah. Like, you're not going to find that she's secretly been writing poetry about you for 8 years and never mentioned it. You know what I mean? You're going to find something bad.
You might find surprise party plans that she's making for your surprise party for your birthday.
No, you're not. All right. I got another one that I think this one is more interesting. Okay. Is another direction.
Okay. Oh, good.
I'm 37. I want to divorce my husband who's 40. Everyone tells me I will die alone if I do so. What's the best course of action?
Yeah.
So,
well,
wait,
she's not going to die alone.
There's more to it because she caught her husband cheating on her with her daughter's teacher. So she got the teacher fired.
Oh,
and then she left the husband and said she already filed for divorce. And now she's saying, everyone says you're going to be a single mom. It'll be hard to find a new partner. I should just let him cheat because at the end of the day, he pays the bills. Think about how this will affect your kids. Divorce is harsh on the kids. So the kids are, let me see, 4, 9, and 12. Okay, they're quite young.
It is hard for them. It is hard.
Is what happened. Yeah, but I mean, he did also like hook up with the kid's teacher. Like that's a pretty high level cheat.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
because your kids are involved in it.
Yeah, it's very bad. It's very bad.
Like to me, all cheating is bad.
The bad part of it is taking a relationship that's a extremely sacred relationship, really, involving the someone that spends time to help your child and steering it into a sexual direction and ending up in bed with that person. That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So he's probably done it many other times, I would suspect.
So
these are never the first time.
Yeah. Here's what I know. So the hardest time is the first time you cheat. Everyone who cheats and they get back together cheats again.
Yeah.
I feel like always.
Right. I think so too.
Because you go, oh, it wasn't that bad.
There's an exception to this, though. It's a little bit different, but the exception is you sometimes will meet or hear of people that were married to other people, and then they meet each other, and they have an affair, they divorce their spouse, and they marry each other, and they're very happy. And that happens sometimes.
But a lot of times those people then cheat again anyways. Because it's like,
well, that's true. They both cheated.
Really high. I feel like those marriages are in like the high risk. What's that like? The insurance category, it's like high risk, like 16-year-old sports car.
Yeah.
So sometimes nothing bad happens, but you're in a very risky category. Because the divorce rate for second marriages is way higher than for first marriages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I understand why she wants to leave him.
But the point is, stay together for the children. But the real question they're saying is, stay together because you don't want to die alone. They're not saying stay together for the children. The advice of people around her is, you don't want to be alone, honey. You don't want to be paying your own bills, honey. You don't want to be in that position, honey.
But she's already filed for divorce. Like, can you really go back from that?
No, I don't think you could.
Whenever I hear about people that like got divorced and remarried multiple times to the same person, it always sounds crazy to me.
It is crazy.
Like that's such a huge...
But they sometimes are very happy the second time. Some of them have married 3 times the same person.
It's like, that's just not...
There should be a club of every man who's been married to the same woman twice, because it's not that rare.
So should she divorce them or stay together?
Well, I think there's merit in staying together, honestly. because I don't know about her dying alone, but just for the children until they're a bit older. And then if she divorced him, it's a little bit less traumatic when they have their own lives.
So she has to wait for the youngest child to turn 18?
I mean, she could have her own life. She could have boyfriend. She could have anything. It's if they want to run it that way, they could have an agreement. And I think that's not uncommon today.
Like an open marriage?
I know a number of people who are living under the same roof, okay, but they're not. They're roommates. And and that was what's that?
Like that guy earlier, his wife kissed someone. He didn't care because they're roommates.
Yeah, so more like it's explicitly decided that each of them is going to have their own life. They're going to, be a unit for their children and financially and everything, a partnership. It doesn't have to involve sex.
So weird.
They could have sex with other people.
I don't know. I mean, she got the teacher fired and everything. Like she went pretty hard in.
Well, you can't.
I understand what you're saying. People used to stay together for the kids, and now they don't. And I don't know what the right answer is, but this is a murky one.
Well, the big thing I want to address is a woman who's 37 who divorces. Is she in like Doomsville? Is her whole life messed up? And I don't think it is. However, it could be that she's very comfortable with her husband's income. And if let's say she doesn't have skills and she hasn't been on the job market, she may not want to work for, now it's $20 an hour. She may not want to suffer like that. So she may want to just reach an accommodation like I've described.
Yeah. I think you just have to kind of approach it like logically and say, well, what do I really want?
I'm having a little trouble hearing
how
you.
important is it to be?
So
when my parents got divorced, my mom was like, I am never want to date another guy. So especially when women who divorce, maybe after 50 or 60, I don't know the exact age, my dad found a new wife very quickly, whereas my mom was like, no way. The best part is I don't have to deal with someone's BS again. So they have two very opposite perspectives. They went in two different directions.
Right.
Older men tend to remarry.
They find women very easily. They find men very easily. Women do not find men very easily.
Well, I think there's a desire thing. I think they're like, well, I don't want to have to deal with someone coming home from work and making their dinners anymore. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can retire. Right. So I see the perspective, but that's a murky one. You got one for me?
I do. Yeah. So we've been married. I've been married 9 years.
Okay.
And we waited until our honeymoon to have sex. Up until then, physical contact was minimal. I thought he was just trying to be respectful. So then our honeymoon, he's unable to get an erection. The next year or so, doctors, this, that, sex therapist, urologist, neurologist, list goes on. Okay. He does get wet dreams. Okay. We used to use an injection that would create an erection. Viagra didn't work. So we put sex on the shelf and chose to move forward. He feels like a failure because of it. At least he'd be physically intimate at some capacity early on, but now nothing. He used to hold my hand, cuddle, rub my back, play with my hair, etc. None of this anymore. And over the time, we've adopted 6 children from foster care. Okay. No intimacy, no physical affection, no hand holding, no cuddling, nothing. We've been to therapy, counseling, and he's just basically said to me, he says, to me, sex is gross with anyone. And I hate physical touch. So she says, how do I continue this relationship?
Okay. I like
this question. She says, I have a friend who's female, also like me. We're very close. There have been times we've been talking to her and we've held hands. We're sitting close. It's completely platonic, but I miss that kind of physical touch with my husband. Okay.
So I want to ask you a question because sometimes people say that they're asexual. Is that real?
I don't think so. I don't think it's very real.
Because I just don't know. I've never met someone who is. I don't really know for sure, but that's what it sounds like a description of to me. And it does, because at first I was like, I expected the story to turn out he's gay, because that's where it sounded like it was going.
He might be gay.
But he's not doing any gay stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just saying he might be attracted to men, and he's afraid.
Sounds like he's not attracted to anyone. He's like,
but he might be attracted to men, and he's afraid of expressing that. He's afraid of admitting it to himself. So he continues the charade of trying to be with a woman. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I don't want to jump to that. That's a pretty extreme diagnosis. I think that there's a lot of moving parts here because they tried a whole bunch of things that I don't know exactly what they are. We were talking about therapists. My only experience of a sex therapist is the kind that's probably not real. It's the kind where they come and sleep with both of you. I don't think that's what they really do. What does a sex therapist do?
Well, they have what are called surrogates who they will have sex. So, for example, for a man who is very, very nervous and anxious about sex, maybe he had developed some kind of anxiety. They are surrogates that will work somewhat like prostitutes, but more from a mental health point of view, who will have sex with a man and try to coach him and help him along to help him overcome that fear. But most sex therapists are talk therapy only.
Okay.
So it would be useful. I know somebody who's older and he has never had sex. He's a virgin and he's in his 30s.
Okay.
And late 30s. And so, you know, I have often thought it would be very good for him to have a surrogate, you know, to kind of get over the you know, never having sex before. But and some sex therapists do have a surrogate or list of surrogates that they'll work with, that they'll refer somebody to.
Yeah,
I don't think people are. I think people have baggage associated with sex, sometimes very severe baggage.
So this was going to be my second question: was do you think something happened to him as a child?
Yeah, I think something happened to him.
So
might not have been anything that somebody did, but
that's
what I mean.
Whenever someone is really weird about something, there's usually a story. Like there's usually something in their past that it didn't come from nowhere. So that's what I wonder about, is whether he saw something or experienced something, and which means it takes someone.
He could have had some hangups around sex. Then he could have had a girlfriend. It could have gone really badly. She might have laughed at his male unit, or, you know, all kinds of things. And then he's gotten a real block, and then he just in his mind, it's better to avoid the pain. So I'll tell myself that I don't want that I don't like it. And then I don't have to have the pain anymore.
Because she's like, he can get, this is one of the things you check for to see if it's a physical problem. He can get wet dreams. So he can get hard in the night. So we know it's not a physical problem. But then she said injections.
Yeah, that's Trimix. It's kind of gross. You inject it into the penis and it creates a strong erection.
So just between you and me, like, if those are my two choices, injection in the penis or no sex, I might choose no sex. I already don't like injections, but just the thought of like shoving a needle into it, that's a tough one. Because you can't, because I thought now you can just take a Viagra or whatever. Like, why would you jump to the injection is my question.
Well, Viagra doesn't work for a lot of men, and it stops, not just Viagra, all of the PDE5 inhibitors like Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, they don't work after a while, and they don't work on some men at all.
But she she didn't mention, she went straight to injections.
No, they said it didn't work, and then the shot worked. Okay, however, I didn't read this part, but he got, you know, a painful erection that wouldn't go away, and he had to go to the ER several times.
Well, okay, this guy's got a lot of reasons to not like sex. Like, this guy's getting hit from every angle.
I just think that what happens is some people in their life, some people have develop a hang up. They have multiple really bad shit that happens as a result of their hang up, and it's less painful for them to write it off entirely. That's all. So that's how it is. I think that her choice is to remain in a platonic relationship as roommates with her husband. That's basically what they are. They're roommates. They have all these foster kids, 6 of them. She says, you know, I don't want to break their world apart.
Right.
You know, but she's not going to get affection from him. So kind of like the one we talked about a few minutes ago, she could reach an accommodation with him, and just as long as she's discreet and he's, you know, she can do what she wants, get a boyfriend or whatever. That would be hard, you know.
What do you think about just saying, hey, let's do naked cuddling without doing, because he doesn't like the sex. What if we just agree?
He doesn't like touch. He says, I don't like touch. I don't like being intimate. I don't like being next.
So when I hear I don't like touch, to me, that sounds like there's a bigger issue. That sounds like something serious.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
so let me try. Go ahead. Your turn.
So I was out with my girl, you know, this guy and girl, early 20s. We're out with our friends last week. And one of her friends, they're talking about their exes. She pulls out her phone and can describe her relationship because she has notes about her ex. And my girlfriend pulls out hers, and she has a list of every guy she's dated, and she's got stats on. She's got.
I didn't see that one coming. Oh gosh, a spreadsheet. She's got a spreadsheet.
Yeah, rankings, the sex stuff, stuff about his private parts, his interests. So there used to be this thing that a guy would keep like a little black book and give a woman a ranking of like 1 to 5 bananas or 1 to 5 stars or whatever. I think I saw it in some movie. And I That's what this sounds like. I didn't think those were real.
But you wouldn't want to lose that book. That would be embarrassing for a lot of people.
The fact that she has, I mean, she's so. At first, you think it doesn't sound like a diary. Having a diary is fine, but the only thing you're recording is everyone you sleep with and like notes on what their penis looked like. And he's like, "Should I break up with her?" Because I'll tell you right now, dude, you're already in that. You're already in there. You're already in that notebook.
Yeah, you're in the spreadsheet. Score. Yeah. So you don't want to know. That's something you don't want to know.
Yeah,
you don't want to know that. Like, you really don't. Don't ask a question that you don't want the answer.
Yeah, she shouldn't have pulled out her phone. That's a dumb move on her part.
Yeah.
Because the last thing she wants to see is like a score for her on, and she goes, "What's those?"
See what you said originally. You asked about. You said, "Are women becoming sort of more masculinized due to porn and whatever?" And see, this is an example of yes. You see, this is exactly what men do or used to do, right? And we used to do this in junior high school. We would secretly, the boys, we would rate the girls. Did you ever do that in class? You rate the girls.
Of course.
Of
course not their bits. Maybe their boobs.
Well, they're boobs, of course. Of course,
I would never rank vaginas.
No,
I just wouldn't. But maybe that's because I'm old. Maybe if I'm young, maybe I was younger.
I didn't have sex. I didn't really have sex.
Me too. I never had sex in high school, so I wanted to have a chance.
The girls always wanted to. They not always, but the girls were so aggressive. But they were scary. It scared me. It was. Well, it was.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
So I think it's very masculine behavior that she's engaging in, like rating men.
Well, do you think
there's nothing you can do about it? That's how she looks at it.
I almost think it's a parody of what men do because it's not really. Yeah. I've never actually met a man because it's something I saw on TV. I've never met a man who actually does it. Is what I mean.
No.
And like writes down everyone they've been with.
I did keep a spreadsheet for several years.
My goodness.
With about all the intimate actions with my wife, including cuddling and all that. But I was doing a study. I was trying to see cause and effect, and I learned a great deal from it. But it wasn't to share with anyone else.
So that's weird, but not the same as if your spreadsheet of every person you've ever been with. Because part of it is there's this agreement when you start dating someone that you both just pretend you're virgins, right? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like I think there's a really strong case for don't ask, don't tell.
Well, you don't want it. You don't want her saying, "Oh, would you do this? That's what I love. My last boyfriend did that, and I love that." She could say do this, but she would leave out the part about her last boyfriend, right?
So yeah, there was one I ran into yesterday, which I don't have here, but a girl was talking to her boyfriend about his size, and she goes, he goes, "What do you think of my size?" He goes, "Well, you have great boyfriend dick," and he goes, "What?" And she goes, "It's not too big." And he goes, "It's for a one night stand. I'd want something bigger. One night stand, you want something bigger, but then it hurts afterwards for a few days. So you've got great boyfriend dick. It's really adequate." Now that's a real rough.
It's really cutting. It's really cutting. Why would a woman say that?
Don't open that door.
He shouldn't have asked that. See, he made the mistake of asking. Yeah. You're right. He shouldn't have asked.
Because what no woman has ever asked me is like, "Oh, how would you rate my depth?" You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to score.
You remember there was
the same thing.
Did you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah.
You remember the whole thing about the woman being really big?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You go in there inside her and you don't even know. Big. Is it in yet? It's flopping around, I did know a woman. She was a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, and she did get that tightening surgery. I never knew why, but she, I don't know if it was her feeling or her husband's feeling or what it was for. I didn't ask her, but she did do that.
I think that surgery is really common. As my wife's brought it up with me, and I was like, it's not for people
after childbirth, they get bigger and they get a little bit They supposedly, I don't think so.
They sew it up.
Anyway, I didn't notice any tightness difference, honestly. When
I don't think I've noticed a tightness difference with anyone I've ever been with. I've never noticed someone as significant.
Well, that was funny. That was a funny thing with the whole, this.
Yeah, I'm just so happy to be there. But it's the thing is like,
but you wouldn't ask. You wouldn't rate. Exactly. It's extremely.
Well, why would you want to be with someone and it hurts? It's so strange to me. People just think the bigger the better. That's why I'm glad there's no dick.
Here's the moral of the story.
Guys who go
don't ask. Just don't ask. That's so stupid. How do I compare to other guys you've been with?
How about this? And if you're a lady here, lie. If you're dating me, somehow I permission you to just tell me mine is the best you've ever seen.
Oh, yours the best. Oh, absolutely. My God.
I've never had there's something else I want to bring up with you, which is that sometimes people talk about aesthetics. To me, all penises look the same, and it's horrible. There's no spectrum of good looking to ugly penis. They're all horrible looking. It's a utilitarian, not aesthetic.
Well, I think one thing depends if you're cut or not. If you're cut, as I am, I didn't have a choice in the matter. Then, if an uncircumcised penis looks kind of strange.
Yeah. But that's just like in your head.
Because you're not used to it.
But they both look. I wouldn't want to look. I wouldn't want to like look at either kind of penis. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying. I look at mine. So and I'm cut, so I'm used to that. So so if a man has a foreskin, it's like odd. Look, it's kind of. I wouldn't say ugly, but well, my wife thinks it's kind of ugly. She doesn't, but that's because she's
Yeah, I mean, believe me,
that's something I've encountered. What you're used to.
I've lived in America and England. In England, they don't circumcise.
By the way, yeah, I know that's so much better. I hate that. But by the way, what do you think the average size is for a man?
Isn't it like 5.5?
Yeah, it's less than 5.5. You're right. It's like 5.2 inches.
I can't look at two penises and go, that one's 5'2", that one's 5'5". To me, that's the same size. I also think,
but we've been watching porn, and in porn, there's 2 feet long penises. So everyone is so concerned about size now. I can
hit my nose with my penis. It's not a gift.
Yeah.
So I think, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not really what it's for. Yeah. Like great talent. I think also there's 2 ways of measuring it. There's the top and the bottom, right? If you measure from the top of it, it's always short because the bottom, some people are like, oh, it starts at my butthole. I don't trust anyone's numbers. Certainly not my own.
Yeah. Well, there's studies of it that are done by doctors. They're not self-reported, and they're reasonably
I also don't really trust a doctor who's like, all right, I'm going to make you hard and measure it.
By the way, there are differences by nationality or by birth. There really are.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know. All right. I've got one that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
So, married couple. We've been together for 9 years, married for 6. I'm an atheist. My wife is a Christian. In recent years, her religiousness has gone up. So basically due to her beliefs, here's the changes that are happening. She doesn't like, he says a lot of stuff about her religion, which is not accurate because then he says what she's actually doing. She stopped listening to non-Christian music. She'll let me listen to whatever I want, but if I put on something she doesn't like, she'll put in headphones. She doesn't like to watch horror movies with me anymore. And she doesn't like to watch Rick and Morty, South Park, or Family Guy.
The best shows.
So basically, and it's like
So she became Christian. Is she having some sexual hang-ups? Or is that...
No, this is it. She won't watch Rick and Morty with him.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was like, it's not, that's what I mean. It's like not that. And he's like thinking about getting divorced, but it's also like,
well, Rick and Morty wouldn't be worth divorcing, but with Family Guy also and South Park, I mean, that's divorce material.
I mean, it's also like this guy is 37. What are you doing? Like those are still the things you're into.
I like Rick and Morty. I like South Park.
Yeah, but again, it's like that's the cross. Oh, I can't say it. That's the hill you're going to die on. I just think that,
no, it's ridiculous. There's got to be a lot more to it. Don't you think this is the tip of the iceberg situation? Like, what's the iceberg underneath the waterline?
Well, it's just that, I mean, it's very hard for people of 2 different religions to be married if you're active.
I tell you what, it isn't that hard, but I think it's very hard. This is the problem here. Okay, no, I don't think it is hard. If you've got a devout Catholic and a devout Jew, it's fine. Okay, but if you take a atheist with a devout anything, you've got a big problem.
Yeah.
Because if you don't buy into religion and someone's religious, there's a real issue. But if you're both of a different religion, but you feel strongly about your religion, that's fine. Because you can respect each other.
See, I think atheism is a religion because people get so into it.
I agree. Yeah.
I also think veganism is because you know what? I've never met an atheist who didn't tell you. You know what I mean?
Well, most people today are some version of atheists. They just aren't religious about it, and sadly, I mean, most people are. I'm not, but most people are kind of like, oh, I don't really believe in God. They're not going to make, not going to be putting it in skywriting. They're not making a religion. They're not like vegan. Oh, I'm vegan. Oh, I'm vegan. There's all these jokes about people saying they're vegan all the time. But if he's just like doesn't believe in God and doesn't believe in religion, and she becomes more and more religious, then that is a tremendous barrier in that relationship.
Yeah, I just think that the examples he pointed out are like not the right ones. Just like, so because my kids were talking, my kids brought this up to me today. They go, "Oh, you watch horror movies with mommy? Why don't you watch them with us?" I said, "No, I don't. When your mom watches a horror movie, what do? I face away from the TV and I read a book, and half the time I put in headphones. So we're still together. There's a spectrum. There's some movies I'll watch and some movies I won't. Right? If it's like silly, like an alien monster or zombie, sometimes I'll watch a little bit of it. But if it's like, like a serial killer stuff, no, I don't like that.
Well, I like horror movies. My wife doesn't, and I like to be with her, so I don't watch horror movies. I could watch them on my own, but I don't watch them because she doesn't like them. I like being with her. So,
well, I mean, what I really like are procedural spy movies, which is like the type of movie I could never watch with my wife. English is her second language. She has no chance because they're so complicated. There's like 50 suspects. And I just have to accept that. You know what I mean? Like Jean Le Carre. Yeah. Like those types of movies.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I can't understand them. Anyway, I don't get it either. So,
So that type of movie where there's all this slow movie, that's my favorite thing. And I accept.
But if she doesn't want to watch those shows, why doesn't he respect that? Why is that an issue for him? Like, I don't understand.
I think he's saying we used to do it together and now we can't do them together.
Okay. All right. So.
But yeah. You don't have to. All right, let's
go. He might be worried about the direction of this going. He could be getting worse, right? She could be coming extreme, more and more extreme. So that could be a problem.
I've got one for you.
Okay.
Let's go in another direction. This one is really interesting. Me and my girlfriend have been together for 12 years. So we've been together long, and we don't live together. I spend a lot of time in her apartment and sleep over there most of the time. 2 years into the relationship, she mentioned marriage. But then she stopped. A week ago, I proposed to her, and she said, "I don't want to marry you. I want our relationship to stay the same." I'm almost 35. I want to marry her, live together, and start a family now, but don't know what her plans really are. I don't know if I should continue the relationship or just break up. Okay. This one is interesting to me because 12 years is a very long time.
I'm gonna say something that I have had. There must be a word for this or a phrase for this, but you're having a discussion with a woman and you don't realize it, but it's a incredibly important conversation. She had a very important conversation with him that he just went right over his head.
10 years ago?
She decided, no, the one when she briefly talked about marriage.
Okay.
That was the conversation. She decided at that point she wasn't going to marry him and she's going to move on. He didn't realize how important that conversation was. That happens.
Do you think you can conversation someone from not wanting to marry you into wanting to marry you?
No, but she had a point where she was like at the precipice, and she had a discussion with him, which was very important. She was thinking in her head, "I'm going to test him," and he failed the test, and that was it.
That was 10 years ago. They've been together 12 years.
Yeah, well,
so that's okay. That's what I was saying. Do you mean when he proposed, or when she brought up marriage and he didn't really respond? Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's the same thing. I think that she went through the 5 stages of grief about their relationship where she goes, "Oh, this is never going to be a marriage." Yeah. Right, to break up with him or whatever. And she's gone to accept it. And now it's very strange to me that a guy 12 years in suddenly wants to marry her. That's very strange to me. It's like, what triggered this? Because it's such a long.
Well, she's 35, so she's going to find someone, have children, get married and have children. It's not going to be him.
Yeah, why did she stay with him if they were never, why are they still together when they don't live together? They're kind of, yeah. What's the best way?
Well, I think it's because people don't want to be lonely and they get a lot out of that companionship. But then at the point, like, when you're 23 when she started this, that's one thing. Now she's 35, all of a sudden 20.
Do you think?
Now it's changed.
Do you think she's in a situationship where she's in like half, like the female version of their friends are like half of her relationship?
I think so. Yeah, exactly. And so one day she'll break up with him and have someone else, and she'll get very soon, probably. So my wife and I have been married for 20 years. We have adult children. We have a great marriage, great sex life. But I discovered about 2.5 years ago, she's having what I believe was an emotional relationship with a former male coworker.
So complicated.
I found out when I brought her ringing phone to her and saw a text response from the coworker to an early morning message she had sent. the message was basic. Okay, but I was a little surprised, and I kept looking for more evidence. And then I found she deleted the text thread and used a nickname for him that I thought she only used for me. I confronted her. She denied anything was going on.
No,
she said he's a good friend, just a good friend.
100% cheating. 100%.
He supported her during a difficult time. So we've had many discussions about boundaries and just friends. Okay, so look,
they're cheating.
There is no freaking way that women can have male friends and men can have female friends in a relationship, and with a few exceptions, but there aren't many.
Here's how I know she's cheating. I already know. When you don't want to get caught cheating, one of the smartest things you can do is give your wife and mistress the same nickname. So if you mess up, that's a classic move. It's an advanced one because it's usually not your first mistress when you think of this, but this is something I've heard other men say before.
I see.
And it's the fact that she gave them both the same nickname, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's like Long Dong Silver. I call everyone Big Dong.
Yeah. Like, I'm talking about you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? She's like, oh, I call everyone Snuggle Bunny.
Well, he said that she had a friends relationship with. See, he said that she had a friends with benefit relationship with him before they got married with this guy. Okay, so
he's an ex-boyfriend or a basically. Okay,
an ex. Yeah, exactly.
And I know you and I have different schools of thought. I feel like it's very easy to sleep with an ex because it doesn't really feel like cheating because you're like, oh, I've already done this before. Mm-hmm. I'm just doing a sex now that wouldn't have been cheating if I did it. It feels less like cheating than cheating with a new person.
And you have your routines, you know each other. It's more comfortable.
That's what I mean. I just feel like that they're you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting, right? You already know what sex with them is like. There's all these reasons. So I actually think this is why I don't like to keep exes in my life because it's easy to fall into that. And this is why I've seen a lot of people where they get back together with an ex, right?
It's like a rat hole. It's like a rat hole you could jump into it. Things get difficult. Oh, I've always got that on the side, you know?
I think that's what this guy did. Jumped in a rat hole.
Yeah. Yeah, so she says, I'm wondering if there's any cause for concern regarding, well, yes, there is. There's a lot of cause for concern.
No, there's not. 2.5 years ago, there was cause for concern. when you found the text.
I think this is going, but I think it's still going on. So, yeah.
But he saw the message on the phone 2.5 years ago, right?
He found it on denying many discussions. I think what precipitated this question is that she's mentioned now a get together with old friends, including that guy.
Oh my gosh.
And she's mentioned the guy 3 times in conversations out just in one day. That's the problem. Oh, she's going to meet that. And she obviously has a lot of fantasies about what's going to go on. There are other people at this, like a reunion thing, but a lot of things happen in those events.
So there's a possibility.
Hasn't gotten over him.
There's 2 possibilities here. Number one, she's preparing her exit strategy. Most women, they don't divorce in the moment. They build up a plan for it. They set aside some money. They start looking at schools for the kids. They get a new apartment. They plan it all. So it seems like a surprise for the man, but there's been like 6 months of planning. Yeah, she might be doing that, but there's also a possibility that she's trying to get into like a triangle type situation or something going on with both guys because she's doing a lot of seed planting that's like unnecessary if you're just jumping ship. But I also think if my wife said to me, I don't want you hanging out with your ex-girlfriend and getting drunk, I would not hang out with my ex-girlfriend and get drunk. You have to choose. Either you're married or you're not.
Right.
So this and all of these games where people go, oh, it's just an emotional. It's very interesting to me because a lot of women will say, oh, I was just having an emotional relationship. But I've asked my wife and she's much more upset by the thought of me having an emotional relationship.
That's way worse. That's way worse. Yeah. That's way worse.
So it's like women describe it in a way, go, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I just spend all my time talking about how you don't meet my emotional needs. Oh, that's okay. Then that's great. I love that. So I think this marriage is in trouble. And I think that this guy, you have to kind of face it head on and just say, listen, having someone else in your life, even if you're not cheating, you're already halfway there. Right.
So I think what he should say is you can't get together with these people. Yeah.
Sure.
If he wants to stay together, we have to have rules. And in this case, I think he should have a password to her phone and he should be randomly asking her to look at her phone and not trust her for quite a while.
You think you should like put a tracking thing on her phone and all that jazz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For her knowing about it.
I feel like she knows about it.
I don't mean I mean consensual. It's consensual. I don't mean doing it.
That's what I mean. If you have to do that, I feel like the marriage is already basically It's
Well,
very.
I've
I
run
know it's
into things where
fixable, but it's
people
like
have
so
done it
close.
and they've ended up being okay. It's like they got
Yeah.
past that rough spot and it's passed, and then
Yeah, okay.
this is you know.
So let's go in another direction. I've got one that I think you'll find interesting. So I'm 39, girlfriend's 32. We've been dating for less than a year. We started talking about marriage. And then she said a prenup is a deal breaker for her. She goes, to me, I want someone who enters the marriage 100%. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly why she wants that. So to me, everything she says after that is such a red flag. Basically,
I want all your stuff. I want to get half of all your stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what it sounds like. So I have a prenup with my wife. This idea that prenups are one directional is so strange to me. So our prenup has a whole bunch of stuff. It's mostly about the kids. It covers a whole. So it covers things like neither of us will stop the other person from having visitation. We pre-agreed to 50% custody if we get divorced.
Wasn't that hard to do? Like, to assume when you write a contract, you have to assume all these negative events are going to take place between the person you love more than anyone in the world. Wasn't that difficult?
No.
Okay. Why not?
I think people, if you make it sound like this is my plan for if you say it the wrong way, you go, listen, I want to put a structure in place that covers certain eventualities, because it also covers what happens if we also put in there what happens if we die, who gets the kids, and those things.
No, I agree with you.
So
it's
I think
a good
you want
idea.
To put it that way. So
okay.
It does. Basically, the agreement is it does. There is some financial elements, which is what is in there for me. But I also promised not to take the kids back to another country where she couldn't follow us.
Right.
And she agreed not to take the kids to places in the country where I couldn't find her. We both agreed not to try and do that kind of stuff. We agreed to shared visitation. I agreed that I'm responsible for 100% of the kids' bills, any medical bill, any school bill, any food bill, no matter what, wherever the kids live, I'm responsible for all of that. So there's a lot of protections for the kids. So that's in there. Obviously, I also put in some stuff to say, like, if you leave me, you don't get a bunch of stuff. But because also I've seen scenarios where, you go to court and then the judge says, oh, you have to give 100% because you can start over again, or all, you don't even, it's more than 50% now.
They used to do that more than they do now in the U.S. They don't do it as much anymore, but they used to just completely award everything to the woman from the man.
Yeah, and you don't, and then you get even a thing now. You get no visitation, and there's even alimony for life. You can be married to someone for 1 year, and you have to pay.
My mom got alimony for life, and we had visitations. I only saw my dad for like 4 hours every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
that was the court order. Oh well, you could see your father every other Sunday for a half a day. That was the ruling.
Right. So here's the thing I believe, which is that these are really important things that you should decide when you're not angry with each other, when you're at your most in love, rather when you're most angry. So people make these decisions when they're already mad at each other. And so they're doing things that are for vengeance. I don't know if that's the right word, but like you do things maliciously.
Yeah.
You go, oh, you know what?
Yeah.
Like you start saying things like, I've seen things where people take each other's dog and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
So,
you turn the kids against the other person.
I would have never, but I also just said, I would never, I told my wife, I said, there's no way I'm getting married without a prenup. We have to agree to all these things beforehand. And also, we had a female lawyer who very much was more my wife's lawyer than my own. We didn't need two lawyers, but I just made sure that it was someone who's like, I was like, listen, these are the things, protections I want. And then I wanted to ensure the big thing I wanted was to ensure visitation for myself. Yeah. But then she also wanted the same thing. She didn't want me to steal the kids. So we put that in there because a lot of people, men and women, both do that to each other. So it's better to agree that. And I think that it's so much easier. So if someone says this other stuff is like...
It's a red flag. It's a red flag, you think?
There's only one. Yeah. And I don't care what anyone says. 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's a really high number, right? You have a 1 in 2 chance of divorce. So not
also,
having a prenup is so silly.
She's already looking at it from a standpoint of the marriage is going to fail. She's looking at it that way.
Yeah.
Because she's saying, I won't do a prenup, which is saying, oh, the marriage is going to fail and I don't want a prenup before that.
Because I know the deck is rigged in my favor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not very nice. Well, that's very interesting about your prenup. So who gave you the idea of doing that?
Having a prenup?
Yeah.
Oh, I just think I've always. So
I didn't do one.
You know what it is? Yeah, I got married way later. You know what it is? I've had business partnerships and other issues, and I've been through those. And you know what it really is you see bands go through breakups, and it's so messy because it's like who owns what percentage is this and that, and that you have to. How many bands go into lawsuits and they all end up with less money than they would have had if they just
the lawyers end up richer and everyone else is poorer.
And so I come from the music world. I think about those things. I've had other, you know what I mean? I just got married in my 30s, so I was more aware. I actually think that it should be mandatory. I think prenup should be mandatory, that you guys sit down and make an agreement to what marriage means for you, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what counts as adultery, like all these categories. What are your rules about kids? I think you should talk about religion.
Well, it's a really good idea. This is why people used to, and sometimes they do, go for pastoral counseling before marriage.
Yeah,
there could a structured
a lot to be said
where they can talk about values and what will happen when this happens and how we deal with that. I think it's really smart.
So when we got married, my wife a week later said to me, she goes, "Am I Jewish now?" And I said, "What?" Like it's such a. I said, "I don't think that's how it works," but it was a interesting question, which is, she hadn't even thought about this, and that's the thing is people don't think about those things. As we talked about stuff, but so many people have kids and then they don't talk about education. Well, I don't believe in public school. I don't believe in private school. I don't believe in this and that. And and the same thing is like it's so hard to have the big discussions. That's why arranged marriages have such a high success rate, because they talk about that stuff. I think the parents talk about it. I think the parents look at that alignment stuff. I've got one.
Here's the situation. Let me ask you this one. Okay, so these got married recently, been together for 6 years, just got married. They're in their late 20s. And she said they basically moved from like, let's say Australia to some Europe, and she had to quit her job. Her husband hasn't found a job. He's an introvert and he has social anxiety symptoms.
Okay.
So she's moved to a new country. She wants to reach out. So she does these networking events and she's making connections, and he's fighting her now. He's really upset. He's resentful. She said he's resentful. I'm having fun and then I'm social, and he's worried about being replaced. He admitted to me that he's feeling insecure and that he wants to continue to feel needed, but he's seeing me reach out to all these people and he's worried that I'm not going to need him anymore. And I think I'm not unreasonable. I'm just trying to create a social life outside of just my husband, in a challenging country. So I want to know how to deal with the situation.
Whenever you move to a new country, I think this is really common, that one of you adapts faster than the other one. I think that's very, very common.
Well, he's from that country, so he has family there. She doesn't have any family there.
Well, then this guy's a real D-bag. Like, I'm not. I think there's a real trend for people to self-diagnose lately.
Oh.
I think a lot of people, like when you look on social media, I've met people who go, I have autism or bipolar disorder. You have to ask, were you diagnosed?
Yeah, just read a forum and then you got it. I found it on Facebook. I know I am.
People diagnose each other. Oh, my ex-boyfriend had narcissism. It's like,
and then it was borderline personality disorder. Third guy with that.
Everyone is, but I wonder, because there's this introvert thing has become. I am introverted. I'm introverted. I moved to a small island in the middle of nowhere. I literally moved away from.
I met you at events, and I know you're.
Right, but that's what I mean. So
I don't like them either, by the way. I'm an introvert, but I go to these. Do what I have to do.
People say that they're more introverted than me, and they start saying, "Oh, I have social anxiety disorder." I start to get suspicious that it's self-diagnosed.
Okay. So I have. Well, he feels shy, and he doesn't like to go to networking events. Okay, I can understand that. That's maybe that's what he's saying.
I'm shy. Jumped to a medical condition, right?
But I would say this: that if I love my wife, we move to a new place, I want to see her thrive. I want to see her have friends. Yeah. Like, I'm so happy when she goes out with friends. My dad was not like this. My dad was always jealous of my stepmother. And he's always tried to hang out. When she had her friends, he would always try to hang out with her friends. He never had his own friends. She had to try to get, it was awful. And I don't want to be that way. And I'm not. I want my wife to have her own life. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I feel secure enough that she wants me and should come back to me at night, but I want her happy. Why doesn't he want her happy? Because he's insecure. He's worried about himself, that he's not going to be, that's a problem on his own.
Yeah. I mean, my wife goes out a lot when I'm working. I'm doing these calls with you. She's out half the time. care that much.
You're happy. You're happy she's happy. You don't want her sitting by herself.
I don't want to go out. There's also a balance. Like going out 1 or 2 nights a week is one thing. Going out 7 nights a week, you got a problem.
I'm not talking about nights out either. I'm just, I agree. So,
and what time is she coming home? 4 a.m. and crying? You have a problem. I think that. So there's a bunch of moving parts here. I just feel like this trend is. I just wonder because people then say, "Oh, I have this, so it justifies this behavior." Oh, I'm introverted, so that means I can be jealous of you.
Well, he's declining every invitation.
Exactly.
Okay, that she says that's the point. Okay, his behavior, it's not a diagnosis. His behavior is somebody that doesn't want to be social.
What I mean, here's what I mean. He has diagnosed himself as social anxiety, introvert, so that's why he's behaving in a way that's inappropriate.
So it's an excuse, you're saying? It's kind of like lets him off the hook. He goes, well, that's because I have this sickness.
The reason I don't want to go out with you and your friends is because I have a disease.
I'm sick. I have a disease. It's not my fault. I wasn't. I didn't want this to happen.
It's a way of like pushing off responsibility for your behavior.
Agency and responsibility. Yeah, no agency. I can't do anything about it.
The problem is not her. The problem is him. She's like, I'm in a new country. I'm trying to figure things out. I want to, and especially women are more social than men, right? My wife has more friends than me. All of that stuff, which is fine. So this is I'm just wondering how long till this guy starts killing her plants because it's the same thing. He's jealous of something in her life. And when you get jealous, it makes things worse most of the time. If he's already too far down the jealousy path. So the other woman who like came home and said I kissed a guy, she wanted jealousy, but most of the time women don't want you to be jealous of like when you're this. This is not a bad behavior from her.
I think that it isn't, and I think that what they could do is the naked cuddling and all that. It could be in a few weeks, could help both of them.
I can't cuddle with you. I have social anxiety.
We didn't say that. and then it's like, honey, will you go with me? Okay. And I go, okay. Men will do almost anything for a woman if she, puts it correctly. Honestly, if he loves her, he'll do almost anything for her.
Yeah. If like, you can also be like, I'll do this if you let me go out with my friends and don't bother me. You know what I mean? Like you can do some bartering.
Or she could start giving him some kind of pleasure and say, if you want me to continue, you have to go with me to that network event.
What she could also do is sleep with him, and then when he passes out, she can go out with her friends. My wife does that a lot. I wake up alone a lot. It's one of my wife's big moves.
What's yours? What's the next one you have? What's the last one that you have?
Here's one. I'm 38, single, divorced, twin girls, financially independent, essentially full custody, so no drama, own a home, new car. I'm told I'm very beautiful by everyone I know, and I do know I'm pretty, but I'm told I undervalue my looks often. I'm 5'10", long blonde hair, don't have filler, fake nails, or boobs. I'm natural, thick and curvy in a womanly way, but not overweight. I'm very affectionate and have a high sex drive for my age. I don't have wrinkles yet, and I'm often mistaken for much younger than I am. How do I meet men at 38?
I think there'd be so many men that would be lining up for this woman. It's unbelievable that this is even a question. I think a woman in her late 30s. Okay, so I'm going to assume that she doesn't want to have children. Would you assume that?
So she's 38. She can't anymore.
Well, she could.
It's still open for business? Okay, I don't know.
Usually until early 40s. Even mid 40s sometimes. So it's possible. So in other words, a lot of this depends on that. If she's like, I'm desperate to have a father for my child.
I don't get that feeling because the stuff she's talking about is like
more narcissistic than that. Honestly,
where should I
diagnose her as a bit? I say she's a little narcissistic. She just cares about herself. Okay, which is cool. So I think that many men, especially men who are 50s and 60s, she's got to look for an older guy because younger guys are not going to be into her. They're going to want a woman in her 20s, but a guy 50 or 60 would be interested in a woman like that in her late 30s. That's my thought. There's plenty of guys. She's just fishing in the wrong pond.
Yeah, because so what a lot of women say is like, where can I, and this is something guys say too. Here's a really simple answer. They go, oh, where can I go to meet men? And then they just go and do what they're doing. This is the mistake I made when I was in my late 20s, 27, when I had my revelation. I went to the same pub every night for 6 months. My friend's like, how can we never meet any women? I was like, well, the women don't come in here. Women walk in, look around, and leave because they realize they made a wrong turn. This is not a place that women come to. So that's why I realized that was it. And I stopped going there. I think that was the last night I went there. As soon as someone said like, oh my gosh, that's why we don't meet women, because we go to places women don't go to. I started going to the type of nightclubs I don't like, but that women like. And it changed my life. So my biggest advice, I always tell them, they go, oh, I don't meet any men. I said, oh, here's what you do. Go to a comic book convention. Here's what you have. A ton of straight men who will appreciate any woman. The ratio is often 1,000 or 2,000 men for every woman, and they all have enough money to have collectibles. So they're all people that are single, will treat you right. And they're looking for
there's probably a lot of other places like that.
But it's the principle.
Too.
But I mean, it's the core principle. You think, oh,
that's a great idea.
A place where a lot of men go who are probably single.
She's fishing in the wrong pond, is what you're saying.
The
same
where
thing.
Men go, and it's the same thing if someone says, "I want to meet a CEO."
She could do it online. She could do it online too. She just has to be responsive to men who are a little bit older. That's all.
But I mean, also part of it is that she doesn't understand some of the things she's saying are not positives for men. Like I have my own car. It's like. Or I have my own career. Those things don't really matter. And she's like,
those are right.
I have full custody, so no drama. When I hear full custody, what I really hear is I'm a mom 90% of the time. Because she even goes, oh, I can go on 2 dates a month. That's a really slow burn relationship. I mean, when I first met my wife, we went out 5 or 6 times a week for the first few months.
Almost every day. Almost every day. You're crazy about each other.
Number of dates would take this woman 6 years.
Yeah. Well, you can't. You can't. You can't light the flame and have it be really bright if it's once every 2 weeks. So she doesn't want to give up anything. She wants to try to have everything the way that she wants it, and that doesn't work that way. But there's plenty of guys that would want someone like that. Plenty of guys.
Right.
So one more thing I'm going to mention here. Just the last thing I want to mention is. This guy says, if you're dealing with a spouse who displays little interest in sex, maybe from past trauma, but you want to stay together, he says, try edibles. And I've been experimenting a lot with these things. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube, but I mean, it's legal. A lot of places where I am, it's legal. But he says, neither of us have done recreational, stuff in our lives, but we thought it'd be worth a try. Tried a number of products, but we got something that really seems to be good. It's not a distraction, and it helps her feel more pleasant. And, she kind of is thinking back on the sexual encounter she had that she really enjoyed, and we're kind of getting back into the thing where she really enjoys it. So if your spouse loves you, but is held back by repressed memories, this could be a help for you. And I have to say that I do agree. Have you done any work on that area?
So I always worry about this kind of thing because it's unstudied, so you don't really know. And my experience is that there's even if you go to like a legal place, there's such a wide spectrum of what the ingredients. Oh, this is one end of the spectrum. This is really strong. This is really weak. This has this feeling. This has that feeling. So,
well, they tried a whole number of things.
That's what I mean. So that's what I mean. You got to try 50 things to find. So that's the first part. Is that you don't really know. Oh, it's this ingredient, not that ingredient. This is level of strength. So there's that part of it. And the second part is everyone responds differently to it.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge is that, but here's the thing I think about. Originally, ecstasy was prescribed by therapists and marriage counseling. It was really, that's what they originally used it for.
I have to say, it is pretty wonderful. I can understand why.
I mean, it's a real. I
did it when it was legal. I bought it from a chemical supply place when it was legal and gave it to all my friends.
Yeah, that's what, but it's a long marital counseling session. Like we're going to the therapist for 12 hours. But
I think that in this case, this is safe, very, very safe. And it's a reasonable thing to try for like the situation as described.
Yeah. Sometimes my wife and I go to another country where it is legal. But we always have a bad experience. It always ends up being too strong and then we can't do anything. So the other thing is that you can end up like taken down for 12 hours if you don't.
Well, you have to stick to indica, not sativa. Indica.
Well, that's what I mean. So there's a whole. There's a whole rabbit hole of science.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. That it's very easy to miss the mark. And here's a secret: people that work in those stores didn't go to pharmacy school for 6. You know what I mean? Everything they know is kind of
they're not exactly the people that are well trained. I mean, it's a pathetic thing, really, because you can't really get any good advice in those places.
Exactly. So that's the challenge.
If you go into a store that sells, I don't want to say the word, but if you go into a store in the U.S. that does that, you can talk to a guy that's very, very knowledgeable. He'll tell you what to get, what not to get, what's your need, But if you go to one of those places, they don't know anything. So you just have to try things. But I have noticed a number of people have reported the same thing where they've been able to use this in a way to overcome hangups and issues that have been in a relationship to restore it sexually. There's women that have lost desire that are not lubricating well. This seems to be helpful for that too. So,
how there's that thing that says, "Oh, a glass of red wine a day is healthy."
Yeah,
and people hear that, and then they drink like a bottle of whiskey a day.
Mm-hmm.
That I think there's a lot of people that talk about the medical uses, like for pain management for marijuana, which I understand. Right, I understand the pain management element, and then they go, but that's just like a cover for what they really want to do, or they end up like doing it all the time. So that's what I mean is that.
Yeah. Oh, it can be very, very addictive. Very, very bad idea.
So there's a lot of moving parts to it, and
yeah,
that's right. They're really common for people to take each other's ADHD meds in college. It's so common.
I remember that. People would sell them.
Who's like, I have a paper due tomorrow. And he spent 8 hours looking for someone who could hook him up with what he needed to then work on the paper, instead of spending those 8 hours working on the paper. And I've always been afraid of adding a chemical dependency to my ability to work, or in this case, your ability to be intimate. So that's my hesitation. That's what I think about.
And see, I feel very differently because especially, she's 66 years old. There are other health issues and like lubricating, painful intercourse, lots of issues. And if this can really help make a major, major difference.
Yeah.
And what he said is this stuff allowed her to be 100% there with me, no distractions.
Okay.
She just wanted to be intimate with me and responded to PIV for the first time in her 66 years.
PIG? Now, pig?
PIV, penis and vagina intercourse.
Oh, sorry, I don't know this. I don't know the slang.
Yeah. So that's the thing. A lot of women don't really feel much pleasure out of that. Only really from clitoral stimulation. And if someone can get, and yet that's the most fulfilling thing that men and women can have. And relationships that have a lot of that tend to be very, very good relationships.
Okay.
There's all these things you can try in bed, but that fundamentally is the most healthiest thing that really solidifies a relationship. Yeah. So if this allows that to happen, I think it's a good thing.
No, I'm not against it. I just think the problem is that it's a case study of one.
Yeah.
And that it's a kind of thing that like should be studied. Just like everything should be, there should be more information on it. Like England has a very different perspective. They have tons of information about what everything does, what the side effects are, how to know if you've taken too much from the NIH. Whereas in America, we have a policy of really feeding people misinformation. So they missed, like I know people who overdosed on water because they were trying to not overdose on something else. And I remember I saw somebody get taken to the hospital for that. And it's such a strange way, but you can die from too much water, which is like
certainly die from it.
Which you wouldn't think. Like it's something you don't think of until you hear of it. So this is something that I think about, which is like education. And we just make, it's like the same thing of reefer madness. We make everything seem so scary, but it doesn't. But actually like letting people know, here's what it actually does to you. Here's the good and bad. Here's the truth. Because once people find out that you've lied about one element of it, they don't believe you about anything. You lose all that trust. And I think that's why like I'm open to a lot of studies of these things. It's fair enough, but to figure out, here's the right one, here's the right dose. Like there's a lot of information that I think is important. So especially now that it's becoming legal, and it's legal in a lot of countries, but there's a pro and con to everything, which is that, anything can be abused, unfortunately. So that's the other issue is that you just have to find. Those are the two things I worry about. But if it's helping their marriage, like it's fine by me. Like, great.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you all for being here. Make sure that you like and subscribe. If you're watching YouTube, hit the bell icon. We do this every week on Wednesday. You will really enjoy it. Love it. And we will see you next week, and hope that you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.